Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while he was speaking, a few other people walked in. I'd like to welcome here the former Minister of Information in Nigeria, former Director General of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, and everybody agrees who has worked with him that he sucked from the breast of knowledge, honesty, gravity, and integrity. Please welcome here Mr. Frank Nweke II. I welcome you. And also here is the representative of the Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Doma, Mr. Chris Ezezilo, Director Admin is here. And I'd like to welcome the representative of the National President of the Nigerian Union of Pensioners, Alhaji Musa Ayuba. Your Excellencies, today we say thank you to one man. He's here with us. And what are some of the people who have defined leadership will tell you when men have vision, dynamism, passion, communication, and foresight, they form wonderful leaders. Some of the great attributes of a good leader is you have a great idea, you assemble a team, and they drive the process. Over 10 years ago, this man did the same. I'm sure he must be a very fulfilled man, saying that that little dream has grown into over 5 trillion and still counting. So today we welcome the man we officially call the father of PENCOM and pension reform in Nigeria. Our former president, I'd like to welcome here, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo.
Please be seated. You know, I always complain about these microphones because when you have a tall man before you and then they have to lower the microphone when you come in, it indicates how short you are. But when I talk of how short I am, I saw El-Rufai smiling. When he was introduced, he got up and he was still not taller than those who were sitting. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the head of service representing Mr. President, it is for me a great pleasure to be here. And I've been told to give the keynote address. And with what I have already listened to, I will give a bit of an address, but I don't know whether it will be a keynote address. I am particularly delighted that the collaboration between the National Pension Commission of Nigeria and the World Pension Summit of the Netherlands, which began in 2014, has resulted in the convergence of great minds, such as are gathered here today, to discuss and explore ways of making the pension and social security systems in Africa more efficient and more effective. Let me digress here. I want to thank and commend the 2 co-founders of World Pension Summit. Maybe if you have been in existence, if the World Pension Summit had been in existence when we had the trouble and the problem of trying to devise how we handle our pension challenges, which I will be talking a little bit in detail about later, maybe our problem will have been eased. Many countries in Africa, like in other regions of the world, have been making efforts to reform their pension systems so as to entrench transparency, accountability, and sustainability. It is apparent that competing demands for resources to address important issues such as education, health, environmental degradation, appalling security situation, to mention a few, have put a lot of strain on government finances across Africa, with the obvious fallout being inadequate budgetary provisions and, in some cases, untimely release of budgetary allocations to pay pensions and related employee entitlements. The pension landscape in Africa has indeed been further undermined by the weak, inefficient, less transparent, and cumbersome structures on which defined benefit schemes have historically been administered. Poor coverage and non-inclusion of the private sector, particularly the self-employed and the informal segment, which is increasingly becoming an important pillar of African economies, are also issues which African countries are grappling with. Without a doubt, the establishment of a viable pension structure for the informal sector is essential, given that it constitutes 61% of the share of urban employment across the continent and is expected to rise due to population growth, fueled by a projected decline in infant mortality. There's also a rise of urban population growth that is projected to reach 60% by 2050. These are sufficient incentives to push African governments and relevant authorities to make the drive for extension of universal coverage of pension and social security benefits, particularly to self-employed and informal sector employees, a major priority and their greatest social policy concern. Additionally, the sub-Saharan African countries need to show more commitment in this regard, and given that the proportion of their citizens in vulnerable employment have attained an alarming 85% and 70% for women and men, respectively. As a consequence, therefore, pension and social security programs must be reformed with a view to addressing these challenges. An emerging trend towards a new balance in the roles of objectives of pension and social security programs is a paradigm shift towards forward-looking interventions that guarantee financial sustainability and adequacy of pension and social security benefits. In particular, administrative structures should be put in place to ensure effective regulation and supervision of pension and social security systems, with the aim of supporting the delivery of benefits in a secure, coordinated, and pragmatic manner. Thankfully, many national governments across the continent have started demonstrating commitment towards reforming their pension and social security systems in line with global trends. These reforms have birthed a novel institution framework which requires that retirement benefits are fully and adequately funded. They follow the model introduced by the Chilean pension reform of the early 1980s, which was aimed at stemming the growth of pension liabilities, reducing physical cost of pension to government, stimulating domestic savings and increased private investment, and generating long-term funds for financing development projects, a welcome corollary of these reforms. Recent legislative reforms